Google changed keywords and your strategy needs to change with it. If you're frustrated because your keywords are triggering for searches that are not relevant for your business, which leads to wasted money and less revenue, in less than 10 minutes, I'm going to show you a new way to regain control over your Google Ads keywords so you can actually grow your business. I've been using this strategy over the last 2 years and it grows businesses. But before we get there really quickly, I just want to make sure that we're on the same page. We need to make sure that we understand the difference between a keyword and a search term. So if you already know this, bear with me for a second. A keyword is what you actually put into your campaign, and a search term is what someone is actually typing inside of Google search. And so when a user types a search into Google, it will then match that search term to a keyword inside of your campaign. And those keywords can be set to be either exact match, phrase match, or broad match. Which leads me to essential number 1. This is the foundation of how Google Ad keyword match types work and the new secret keyword match type that nobody's really talking about. Most people believe that when they are targeting an exact match keyword inside of Google Ads, like shoes for men, that they'll only show up for searches that are very similar to that, like shoe for men. But what actually ends up showing up is this. And if you're really unlucky, you're actually going to have way more irrelevant searches. And that's happening really, really often right now, which leads to a ton of frustration. And you ultimately wonder why. Why am I showing up for this? How is this even relevant? This is because instead of taking the literal word, Google's algorithm has now shifted to determining what the meaning or intent is behind the actual search. And so this has actually fundamentally changed how keyword match types work. It's no longer about the literal word, it's about the meaning. Check this out. This is the difference between how match types used to work and how they work now. And if you haven't seen the new match type, it's actually what's called the AI Max match type, which leads me to my formula on when to use each keyword match type. This typically means that you have 2 different questions. The first one is, when should we use each keyword match type? And the second one is, when should I use negative keywords to make sure that I show up for the right searches? Most people are struggling when they're actually just trying to choose a keyword match type. And so what they end up doing is they're adding all the match types, and then they wonder why their Google ad campaigns are not working. The secret to knowing which match types to use is actually asking 2 questions. The first one is, do you have a very niche product or service? So like, in other words, do you have a very small number of monthly searches within Google Keyword Planner? And number 2 is, do you have competitors running ads on Google? If you do, the strategy here would be exact match plus maximize clicks and really focus on relevancy and positioning. In order to stay relevant, you're going to want to make sure that you check your search terms report for only relevant searches and exclude anything that doesn't make sense. Do this at least every 48 hours. If you can, do it daily. And the second thing you're going to want to monitor is the positioning of your ads. So this is basically, how high are you up on the search results? You'll want to monitor search impression share, click share, search top is, and search absolute top is. If you do have competitors running ads on Google and you have a fair amount of search volume, then what I would recommend is actually using exact match plus using the maximize conversions bidding strategy. Because Google ultimately understands most likely your product or service, smart bidding is going to have a lot easier of a time figuring out how to get you conversions. So you're going to want to focus on the landing page optimization. You're going to want to monitor how people are navigating the website and really review the quality score for all of the keywords. You'll want at least a 7 out of 10 quality score. And if it's lower than that, you can actually diagnose why that is by using these 3 things. The first one is expected CTR. The second one is ad relevance. And the third one is landing page experience. You'll want to basically go to the keyword section in your Google Ads dashboard and bring in those columns to kind of see what your existing quality score is. Now, you might be wondering why I haven't talked about phrase match or the new one called AI Max. Now, to be honest, I rarely use phrase match. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Google gets rid of phrase match one day. And it's because when Google changed how match types work, went from the literal word to the meaning, phrase match in a lot of tests that I've done has just really underperformed. This is why I focus entirely on using exact match and broad match, and then occasionally I use AI Max. But when it comes to AI Max, it's really right now Google's great experiment in trying to add in another phrase type and really kind of starting to test, can you basically go completely keywordless? It's like Performance Max, where you basically just give it a landing page and then Google will go and determine what you should start to show up for. I've found that AI Max works best when you restrict it. So you're using like target ROAS or target CPA when it comes to bidding strategy. And so this just kind of forces Google to not go crazy when it comes to AI Max, and it'll focus it on actually giving you quality conversions. Now, one thing to think about is when you're using AI Max, it's really taking the signals from people who are going to your website. And so it's just like doing a ton of remarketing. It's like DSAs. Another thing you're going to want to think about when it comes to AI Max is make sure you exclude brand searches or basically the name of your business, because it's going to heavily favor people who already know your business. Oh, and one really fun tip when it comes to match types, you can see what match type your keywords are showing up for by going into your campaigns in your Google Ads dashboard, selecting segment, and click on search terms match type. And there you can see all of the data on the match types your keywords are showing up for. It's most likely going to be favoring the broad match type in order to expand the searches that you can show up for. Which leads me to my secret Google Ads keyword strategy that allows me to control the searches my ads show up for. Now, nearly no one has been able to figure this out. I've talked to lots of different people in the industry, and honestly, Google has made this extremely difficult to control because of how match types are now. Like we've gone over, instead of the literal word, it's now the meaning. But here's the one thing that's still true, even in the midst of all these changes: relevant searches equals success, period. There's so many people saying that the way people search has changed and that we need to ultimately change and adapt our strategies. But that's not true. People still search for what they want. And think about it. If you want a water filter, for example, what are you going to search for? Best water filter would probably be one of those terms. That has not changed. And so, why would we want to give up control and not show up for that specific search, or give Google the ability to give us that search when it deems that we should be able to show up for that search? This is where my secret strategy and control of search terms comes in. This works both for search campaigns and standard shopping campaigns. There are 6 steps. So the first one is research. This is where you're going to compile a list of the top converting search terms in the history of the account. So you'll want to filter for all time and go and filter by conversions, and then that's your list. You'll basically take the top 10 to 20. Then you can go ahead and filter out those searches and download all of the terms that are not those top converting terms. This is what we're going to add as negatives to the campaign before the campaign even starts, to control the searches. Now, there's one big problem that typically happens when you're looking at an account, especially a large account with a lot of searches, is you are only allowed 10,000 negative keywords in a campaign and 20 total negative keyword lists, which can have about 5,000 negative keywords in it. And the problem is, when you have a large account with a lot of history, you're typically looking at hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of searches that you basically want to exclude. And so there aren't enough spaces for that. So I had to come up with a solution to basically be able to compress this list so that I can show up for the searches that I want to show up for, which leads me to step number 4. This is where you take the hundreds of thousands of terms and compress it down to about 10,000 or so negatives. I do this by running what's called an n-gram analysis, which identifies the patterns and relationships in text data to build a predictive model for language processing tasks. It takes smaller portions of the keywords and condenses it, and then I take out duplicates and add them as phrase match. And then I go ahead and I compare that list to the top converting search terms, and I take out the ones that include those top converting search terms. Once I've done that, I move on to step number 5 and I add those searches as negatives in phrase match to the campaign. And now I'm starting my campaign with basically excluding everything that isn't already my top converting search terms. So the really cool thing here is that Google won't go after all of those other searches. It's going to focus in on the searches that you have already said, I want it to go after these, regardless of the match type that you use. Now, when I first started doing this process manually, it literally took me days to do this, but I've created a process using code that basically allows me to do this with automation and AI so that I can basically do this within about an hour. I'll have that available coming up soon, and let me know in the comments below if you're interested in something like that. Now, we can't stop there because there's ongoing maintenance and ensuring that our campaigns are showing up for what we want to actually show up for. So, step number 6 is crucial in order to maintain that control over your searches. This is where you're going to want to continue to exclude the searches that are not those top converting keywords. And you're going to want to do this daily. It's really tedious, but you can also automate this process by using my negative keyword script, where you add a list of the searches that you want to focus on, and it will basically hourly exclude everything that isn't those. You can see how I automate millions of negatives by using this script here.